Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai, and happy April Fool's Day. That's right, it is April 1st, 2023. And by the smile on my face, you know the truth of how I'm feeling. This is spectacular. What's the old saying? If you've got lemons, make lemonade. I'm not sure what to do when you get 8 to 10 inches of snow, as March goes out like a ferocious lion last night. Oh my goodness. Today was supposed to be day one of the weekend Peter Tea workshop, and it was just called off in the last hour. I got my driveway shoveled, got some beautiful pictures of the snow today. The neighbor's tree fell down, or the limb, and crossed the road on our street. It is stunningly beautiful with the sun out in full force today, but it stunningly disrupts life. We've got a neighbor who has a Floridian visiting. He's going to go home tomorrow. Probably not soon enough. So I was going to work on a couple of trees at the Peter Tea workshop, so I'll just stay in the comfortable, cozy plant room and work on one of them. So let's get to that and leave this beautiful oasis to go head into the plant room. So just the other day, when I was getting ready for the Peter Tea workshop, I had to take out my Australian pine, or my Austrian pine, get it out of the frozen garden over here and bring it inside. I did that, and I also moved my larch and my black spruce trees. Do you think I'll get some natural bends as a result of this snow? Yeah, I think the one down there might have snapped. Oh boy. Sun and 38 today. Tomorrow, 48 degrees. I might be able to see the damage left on these trees. How about those larches? Yeah. Mother Nature at its finest. Once again, a happy April Fool's Day to everybody. It sure came in and out like a lion. March left, April came, lion lamb. Yeah, let's stop talking about it and let's dig into a tree. This is one of my larch. This is one of my first purchases of a larch tree. I think it's the very first larch tree that I owned, and I bought it from my favorite nursery. I believe it was in the discount section because that's commonly what I do. And it is my most formal upright tree. Probably can't see the tippy top, but it's pretty straight all the way up. We started to get a little curve up here. It's just working out that way, right? Very hard to keep a true formal upright for long term with many trees, but this one is doing a nice job of having some fairly straight. Now, it'll end up being an informal upright in some point in its life because it already has even the slightest bend right here. It is subtle, but it's there. And there's a subtle bend movement here, and then there's more up top. So there's movement in the tree. We like movement in bonsai, so it's not the end of the world. I'm not stuck with just the formal upright position here. I've got a pretty decent nabari here. We'll show you that when we get it out of the tree and show you the root system. The nabari is starting to develop. I've got some nice swelling down below. And I'm just going to finally put this in a nice pot. It's been in a training pot all of its life. And let me show you the pot that I'm going to put this one in. So I have a few Sarah Rayner pots, and I've showed a few of those on my channel. And I originally got this pot for a couple of different possibilities, and one of them was this very larch. And the reason why is we have this Sarah Rayner pot that has kind of these slightly kind of muted yellow tones, yellow gold. I don't know how much that's coming in on the camera here, but inside the crack here in this decoration, some of the stripes that go down, it's kind of this really nice earth tone, mustardy yellow kind of gold color. And so when this tree turns into its fall glory with all the gold color, I think this pot will really suit it well. And then in the spring and summer, when it pushes out that really beautiful tiny little foliage that goes into the multiple foliage, what are they? Needles. I guess they're needles. It's so different than a pine, but it's a needle. You know, they get their clusters of needle bursts coming out. And so we are going to get into this pot. This pot might be a little bit big for this tree, but it's just going to grow up in this tree, and if I need this for some other tree down the road, I always have it. But I've wanted it in a nicer pot for a long time. So we're going to grab our repot box, we're going to grab our tree, and we are going to go to town. Today was supposed to be Peter Tea Day number 1. We were supposed to get together and get some education from Peter. See if this comes out of here, and work on our trees. There we go. Now this was in the cold frame most recently, so that came out of there super nice. Peter Tea's in town, and we're going to work on our trees with him. Now I have a trident maple I'm going to work on, and I have the big Austrian pine, and I was going to bring this along for something to do if I started to run out of things to do. There's always something to do when you follow Peter Tea around to the other members of the club, and you learn a ton. So I've got some moss here, and as little as it is, I'm going to collect that right now and put that on my landscape challenge, possibly under my oak tree or in one of my trees, because this is natural moss that has grown in my backyard, in my microclimate, and it's got some spores in here that could grow into future things. So I'm collecting this moss right here. I want to save this, and even if it dries out, I can shimmy it on up, shrivel it on up, that's the word I was looking for, sift it on up, and put it into some sphagnum moss. So we'll put that aside. This is a good time to repot larches, as with most trees, because it is hasn't completely woken up yet. It's about ready to push out some growth. So here we have a close-up of one of the branches of the larch tree. As you can see, the little buds right there, they look a little more shiny, yes, somewhat due to the light, but they're a little less dry looking. They look a little bit shinier, and they're starting to puff up and swell up. Now, if they started to show green at the tips, I could still repot this. If they burst open and it was some more green, I could still repot this. But this is a really good time to repot my tree because it is full of energy, ready to push out some great growth. And so I'm going to get it into a new pot with some new soil, and so we can get a good balance of oxygen and water and let this thing shoot out. Plus maybe make a couple of final trims on this thing, and we'll be ready to go. But there's a good example of new buds on this secondary branch. And yeah, they're ready to go soon. As I continue to chopstick through the roots, it's nice to see so many roots. Some are wrapping around the rectangle pot. Some are thicker than I anticipated. As I do this, I'm trying to think how long it's been in this particular pot, and really when is the first year that I put it in a pot. So let's go back, let's do a little digging, and let's show you some highlights from the larch, my formal upright larch, in years gone by. So let's go back and look at the footage that is archived and see what we got as I get this first wire here untangled and we start getting deeper into the root system. It's finally time to work on the tamaracks. So I have 2 of them that I put on the bench, and I've been keeping out, not tucked away too much, and I've wanted to get them ready to work on here in my studio. Really, this time of year is kind of fun to look at the trees and really take your time and look at the design of the tree and look at your branches that go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4. If you're looking at a tree that's starting to get into that ramified category, this is still in development without question, but I'm still working on some ramification. And the reason why is because I just like the way this tree looks. So I don't have too much going down here, and for anything to grow here now and become a thick primary branch is probably not going to happen. So I really have to hang on to these branches, and this one right here being one of them. You got to hang on to that guy and hope that that still does well. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 of these branches all right here. I don't want this to grow towards you, the viewer, so I'm going to cut right below that one. Cut that tip off right there. But this is a tamarack. It's going to shoot out all kinds of new buds in the spring, or new foliage, I should say, and it's going to be lovely. And so I just want to tidy this one up a little bit. We are trying to get the bottom of the tree bushier. This is really that traditional, formal upright triangle shape, that conical shape. So we got to make this top part not so thick and soaking up all the energy, to make sure that we have balance on the other parts of the tree. I haven't touched any of the bottom half, but the top half, you can see how much I thinned it out, making sure that I'm going to keep the branches that I want to keep on there. I cut more from this side than I was hoping to, but it was growing up really weird, and this new growth here can take over and we'll just get some more growth. Plenty of thinning out here that the sun's going to get to all of these just fine. This tree has always done well over the years, and this is a species that's really fun to have. I think it's a great species for folks who are just getting into bonsai, especially if you live in the upper Midwest, because they're hardy up here. And what's nice about these trees, as you can see from some of the footage and pictures and footage throughout the years, you know, these trees just can bush out, and you can trim them 2-3 times a year and get 2-3 really good flushes of growth. So you can really control the growth habits and patterns of this tree. You got a couple of branches that are going crazy wild. You can leave them to get some girth and thickness to where that branch is coming up from, or you just keep cutting it back and let it subdivide, bifurcate, where there was one that becomes 2, and you're going to have a really good tree in not too long of a time. And so even when this tree is bare in the spring, it looks kind of a little spindly sometimes. Even with all the years I've been working on it, there's some gaps and holes, you know, places where I'd like more tree branches to be coming out of. But then when it leaves out and you've got all this nice poofy growth, you can see a lot of really nice structure to the tree. So before I cut anything off, while you were looking at the old footage, I was digging through this, and look at this root system. So this has been in this pot for a long time, and I can just kind of scrape some of these off. They're thin enough, or they're just falling apart. Look at these roots. And they were kind of growing on the outside. And so I got a couple of these roots that grew to the outside and got all these fine roots on the outside there. Well, of course, that's not going to stick around. We're going to cut this and put it into a new pot and hopefully get a lot more feeder roots. So we can simply cut all this off right away, regardless of how thick. And there we go. And look at that pile of roots. Yeah, that's a lot of roots that we just got rid of. And so, remembering, we're going to get this thing into our new pot here. So we have to look at size and how much roots we're going to take away. So I had said earlier that this pot might be a little bit big for this tree, but you know, not so much. I've got about 1 inch plus girth down here. It's getting wider down here, and this is only about a 2-inch deep pot, so it's going to grow into this pot really, really nicely. So as with a lot of my trees, whether it's been luck or how I've taken care of them, I always tend to have one side of the tree that's not growing as much radial root pattern here. So one good thing about repotting this now too is I've noticed there's a lot of more, you know, I got rid of the moss earlier on as I got into this tree, and then there's a little bit more kind of dirt, if you will, still on this in this tree, close to the trunk. It'll be really nice to get a lot of this cleaned up here and get some fresh bonsai soil where water will not just sit and pool here, to make this a little bit kind of on the really wet side. And I don't want it to create any too damp of a trunk where it's going to eat into that trunk and create some kind of decay. We don't want that to happen. So as you can see on this side of the trunk here, look, it goes kind of straight down right here. There's this root that kind of came off this way and went a little bit towards your right. There's a beautiful root right here, and there's a root underneath there, and there's a really nice big swell of the trunk right there. So we're going to have to clean that up and see what we can do and try to promote some more root growth in certain areas. And as we continue to work on this tree, you'll see like a root like this, and it's growing up from down here. So I don't know what that's coming from, but we're going to cut that right off because we don't want that growing up and crossing. This one also grows up and crosses, and look, it comes from way over here as well. So we'll see where that root structure goes, where it's coming from. But we don't want that. We can cut this big one off as well. I see some of these big ones that we don't need. This one's growing up right here from the root base, so I'm going to cut that right here. This one's growing up. Actually, there's a nice root right here. It's the big one right here, and it comes down here. We're going to shorten this one up quite a bit. So we'll do it right there for right now. And that got rid of that for us. And we're going to hope that divides and all that, okay? So this root was going backwards. It's growing straight up from this root. So let's keep plugging away at the soil here, and we'll do some root selection in a little bit. I'm giving the tree roots a little bit of a soak. Let's get a close-up of how we're going to sort out this root structure on the larch. Let's begin with this root right here. It's growing up here. This looks like it was an old one cut off, but this one's going up here too. I think we just have to get rid of that. Get rid of that. And I'll leave the other part for a moment. We've got a root coming out here from a strange direction. Look at that, they're tucked in. There's a root right here that's kind of, looks like it's doing a little bit of girdling here. And I don't know where that one's even going, so yeah. We're just gonna cut that one off so it doesn't keep wrapping around. And this one's coming back sideways, so we're just gonna clean that up. There we go. We got this, and one down here. It'd be nice if this root was up here, but it's not. So we have to figure out which one of those I'm going to work with. Maybe can promote more growth there. Again, we put some sphagnum moss maybe there and smaller soil particles, so it has a chance to stay moist and grow some roots. Got some roots tangling in here. This one's growing backwards, and I don't know if we can get those like shoved through and down. Like, where is this one poking through down here? Yeah, I was able to get that one down there. So this one's crossing. This one down here is crossing a weird direction. It's crossing with this one, which is coming from this main root. So that's, you know, this is going this way, and this one's coming underneath here, and this one's crossing over there. These are coming up and trying to grow over and cross. Now I'm confident I can, this one's growing upwards, let's get rid of this one. I'm confident that we can get rid of a fair amount of roots on the larch. When we collect the larch up in the bogs of northern Minnesota and we bring them back, they have very, very few roots, and we keep them very moist in pumice for a couple of years, and they do fine. I don't want to cut this completely bare, but I'm not afraid to cut off some roots because of that, and knowing they're going to grow back some new roots. So this one's coming from underneath, and it's got this weird grow back. We're just going to cut that one off down below here. I don't need that one there. Let's turn it to the bottom side here real quick. It's like I can cut like a ½ inch of roots right up here, just right there. We can cut all these little fine roots off because they're growing at the bottom, and it's got a super thick section right there. So we're going to cut these roots off, and then we might have to do some cleaning here. We're going to try to get, yeah, there's some roots that we cut here before. We're going to cut them back even more. Here we go. Now we can kind of see the development of what I was looking at. Underneath all those roots was this kind of old taproot, if you will. So we're going to go in here and we're going to see if we can cut some of these roots off. There we go. See, there's one of them right there, facing more towards me. Look at that cluster of roots. So this was one root, and look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, there's roots all over that thing. So we know, again, this has been a good candidate for shooting out new roots from that old cut point. So as I cut into this root pattern or root structure today, we know we're going to go ahead and come back and get some more roots. So there's the root structure that we're going to try to nibble away at. So let me get my nibbler and we'll keep going. So here we'll come in and we'll cut some of that root off. Remember, we want to try to make a flat bottom, so I want to cut these so they'll be flat. So that's 1, 2, and this one over here is 3. We had 3 roots down here creating some havoc. And we have a bigger root right there that's growing from that structure as well. We're going to go ahead and cut that one right off. because we don't need that. Thick tangle of roots that we're trying to spread out in a nice 365-degree radial pattern. And this bottom structure is just, look at that, that's just coming from deep in there. See right there? That was tangled back. You see how that's growing back right there? Well, we don't want it to grow back, so we're going to cut it right there, and hopefully the roots will grow out now towards the other side of the pot, right? So not a pretty 360 pattern, but you know, in some areas it looks stronger than others, and again, we'll continue to work on this tree. We got a lot of life, a lot of growing, a lot of development for this tree to keep doing better things. A lot of original soil. I'm kind of shocked to see this much soil. I must have been a little bit nervous to bare root this back when I got it many years ago. But we're going to wash this out a couple more times, and we're going to make sure we get rid of some of this gobbledygook here, which of course is making all these roots grow like crazy because it holds on to the moisture. We'll get a little bit more oxygen down in here so we can have more spread of the roots and not have such a concentrated pile of roots right in the middle. We want them to shoot out. Now this is the weak side, and I have some of these roots growing right there. I'm not going to touch those roots. Here was that one that, look at that, was growing backwards actually. And so we're actually going to come in here and cut this one off down lower. And this one's growing backwards as well. I don't want that one there. Not to grow that way anymore. We want roots to go down and out. I can't tell if this is a, it's an old root structure there. So there's the new bottom look at the moment. Let's go in here and get rid of a few more centimeters, a few more millimeters of this trunk, of this old kind of taproot, if you will. There's a root right there that's kind of going right in the middle there. So now we have a nice, relatively flat bottom section here that'll sit much nicer in the pot, and we can make sure all the roots grow out. So I'm going to put some drainage screens in my pot, and this almost can sit up right now, but not quite. We'll put the tree aside. Let me get some drainage screens into the pot here, and we'll be good to go. Got my base layer of soil. I've got my medium size next. The base is a little bit bigger. And I got to see if there's a front to this pot that I like better. That one or that one. I think I like this front a little bit better of this pot. It's a little bit more contrasting colors in there. So if that's the front of my pot, I'm going to go ahead and see now. So this tree, this was the front because we could see the trunk structure there. We got these branches going here, and there's this one growing right at us if that was the front. So this was the front. The only problem with that as the front is we have this branch right here that kind of sticks out at us. As you can see, I kind of redirected it with clip and grow this way. It's higher up on the tree. We want some branches out front at some point on our trees. But that's going to be my front. So I've got most of the root structure going to my left, your right. So I think I'm going to put it right in here. And I'm not going to worry about it being straight up and down this time. And so this is my proposal. It's a little off to that side. We got the root structure going this side. I think we can go definitely deeper in the pot. So now I shoved all that soil in there. And the tree can actually stand up on its own now a little bit. I'm going to make sure our trees lean a little bit more forward than back. I'm twisting the tree a little bit more now, so this branch actually comes this way and then zigzags that way. So now I'd want it to zigzag this way. So, but I like the structure of all the other branches. I might cut that front branch off sometime, but I think I like it right there. So let's go ahead and put some more soil. So after a recent repot, I do have some rocks down here in my plant room that are nice and big and kind of a little bit heavier. Plus I just got this new stone from a member of Minnesota Bonsai Society, Terry White. Thanks to Terry for, he came on by the other day, picked up some soil from me, and he said, hey, do you want this stone? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll find some use for it. I might be putting that on here to secure this tree down. So I gotta hold this tree pretty tight because it's not wired in or anything. My biggest concern about this tree without wiring it is me moving it and me moving too fast. You got to slow down, everybody. I couldn't say that enough, and I still can't practice what I preach enough either, so I'm well aware of that. But when you move around this tree for how tall it is, it's very, very tip prone. So what I could do is now wire this into the pot over the stones, and I wouldn't damage the beautiful root structure here. So we have a nice. Let me spin it here to see what I think of this tree all the way around. We are leaning a little bit too much towards the back. We want some more rocks to go in that underneath side right here and hold that tree up a little bit. We'll get a little bit more soil in there. There I have the new planting angle of this tree in a new pot. It's off center, maybe a little bit too much off center, but I'm going to leave it there. And what I like about this tree right now is the base all the way around isn't too bad. We've got this flare here, and the one that curves around back here. So from your angle, which is the front, you see the nice flare there. Looks really nice right there. But then when you even look at the back of the tree, that's not a horrible flare either. So we're going to hope we're going to get some more roots down there. Now again, I can put some smaller soil here and some sphagnum moss. I think I still have some of my leftover mixture from the repot I did a little while ago. We can just put a little bit finer soil in there and hope we get another root growing right down in that area, and that would be fantastic. So these rocks are just going to keep this from wanting to wiggle around until the roots really grow this year and reform what they need to reform. So let's get this thing watered so it's even more secure in the pot, and then we will consider a few prunes. We are ready to put some final touches on this larch, this American larch, this golden larch I've had in my collection for a fairly long time. A pretty straightforward tree. And we've got some things we're going to go ahead and just take care of here before we put this back into the cold frame. Super carefully, of course, because we have this non-tied down tree. So if you look right here, this branch is growing straight inside. We're going to cut that off. This one's coming up from the top. I'm going to cut that one off. And this one's at a really weird angle, going backwards. So we're going to cut that off. I can leave all these for right now. This branch right here has, I'll cut it down to that bud right there. We're going to cut this one down to 6 buds. And you see this one's growing up right here. So if we want some nice taper from thick to thin, we have this nice branch down here growing out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this right here. Get that thicker one off. Now we have this out here coming out to here, and it splits out to two out there. So that's nice. If we want to change this direction, we're going to cut this one off here. I'll cut the tip off there. We'll see if this grows back this way. Plus there's this one right here. We'll see which one grows stronger. This one's competing with it, so we'll go ahead and we'll cut this one back down here to the inside bud there. I'll cut this one down just the tips there. This one's growing straight up, let's get rid of it. This one's growing straight up, let's get rid of that one. And this one's a real thick branch. And we got a thinner branch back here with one going to the right and left. I'll keep the one to the left, and we have a little pad right there, if you will. I'll cut this one out here as well. So that branch is done. This one is cleaned up. Let's keep spinning this around. Right here, look at this one right here. It's growing sideways back here. There's a bud right towards the center. We'll keep that. So it greens up. This one's growing inside at a weird angle. We'll cut that off. This one's coming down at the back, would maybe create some swelling. This one grows straight up over here. There's some new buds over here. This one's growing up and competing with the one right next to it, so we'll just leave it like that. And this one's growing up. This one is fine. We're just going to condense it more because we have some growth behind it. We do have 3 branches coming out of this section, so I don't want 3 branches. So I'm going to cut the inside one off and leave this to grow. We got a dead branch back here. I might even consider cutting this branch off to just keep this as the new branch, but we'll just leave it for right now. Back here, look at here. These are growing straight up and in towards the trunk. We don't want that there. We're going to kind of clean this up. It's getting kind of thick and unsightly there. This one's growing up. Let's cut it down. There's some buds there. Let's cut this thick, coarse branch right here. And I think I want this one right here in the middle. That branch is flat and ready to go. This one right here, we've got some branches growing up here. We've got this growing. Let's go right there and see if this bud down here grows out down a little bit, and we'll cut this back just a little bit. Here we have a bud that's growing back towards the tree, kind of an awkward pattern there. We'll cut that off. This one grows up. These two crisscross, so let's cut this one off. Right there. And we're going to cut this one shorter because there's buds back there. This one grows up. This one's going to have some nice movement on here. This one grows up too. Let's leave that off right there. Let's just leave the rest of that branch for right now. This one grows inside, but I'm just going to cut it shorter and see what that branch does. This one grows up from this branch. We'll cut that one off. This one has 3. We're going to cut these inside 2 off. Cut this dead branch a little bit shorter, and cut that a little bit shorter, and that a little bit shorter. Let's see what buds out and survives. This one looks like it's dead. We'll cut that one off. And we'll see what that one does. This one's growing inside at a very weird angle. We're going to cut that one off. We've got all kinds of buds in there trying to grow up. It's a real thick branch in there. I think we have to cut it back to there and cut all this extra stuff off. And let's see what this does right here. I cut these short and stubby before because these are a little bit thicker than these down here. This is a taller part of the tree. We don't want that to happen, so we'll cut that one off and let these 2 grow. Cut this one shorter, the upward branch. We'll leave that alone. This one has 2 growing up tall in the same spot, but again, this one's thick for up high, so now we can transition from that big branch to this thin branch, which is super nice and a little bit higher even than it was before, so it doesn't conflict with this tall one here. And we'll get that out. I'm going to put the tree on my bench now, my seating bench rather, my stool, so we can do these back branches. This is growing up and out. This one's growing down and in. This one's got a weird angle to it, and this is a weird nub back here. This one's growing back on itself. We're going to cut that one off. We're going to cut this way back and see what growth happens up here. This is all over the place. We're just going to cut that off. And now we have to decide if we're going to cut this tree shorter. Really top heavy, beautiful ramification up here, but the tree's getting a little bit large. Can we cut it to have some new growth? There is a new bud right here. So if I go in and cut this right here, there's my first decision. Nice big bold cut of that tip. That tip is now gone. And now our tree is a little bit shorter. And we have this branch that'll grow up to the sun, but there's a bud right in there that's ready to hopefully do some good stuff. So we will, there's some buds in here. We'll just leave that alone. That'll be, I only cut off about 3-4 inches of the tree, but that's still 3-4 inches shorter. The next spot on the tree that I would consider cutting down to is probably this guy here. It's a double branch right here though. but we've got some buds on there. That could be a little bit advantageous one day as well. But let's put it back up here and let's step back by you all and let's take a peek at my tree. So you can see just from the bottom of the pot to the tip up there, we made a nice new tip up there. This could be nice someday if it grows right here straight up. That'll be nice. We do have a little chunkiness still left up on top here, so if I go ahead and cut this branch off right there, we got that going for us. This one's a little chunky as well. We're going to cut this back here. This is the apex of the tree. And we have a lot of new growth that will need to be had, but we want to make this as conical as we can at this early stage. This one goes straight down, shorter, shorter, and now we have that conical tree shape. So thin up on top, a little thicker down at bottom. I think this one can go to a little bit shorter. And we have our big down at the bottom here, right? And that is the front of the tree. If we go ahead and trim this off, shorter, 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 we have our tree. So the Peter workshop did not happen today. It's been moved to tomorrow. We're going to get there a little bit earlier and see if we can tackle our trees. This is one less tree that I'll have to work on now. We've got it in my beautiful Sarah Rayner pot. I can wait because Lord knows I don't want fall to come too soon. But in the fall, when this thing gets golden, has all its new leaves and hopefully new growth up here. We're missing a couple of spots up here. Let's see if we can get some back budding and see how this tree does. The larch. On April Fool's Day, happy April Fools, everybody. That's going to wrap it up. Hey, take care of you. Take care of your bonsai. I hope you didn't have an April Fool's joke played on you. Yeah, we'll catch you next time, everybody.